In this episode, we are going to be talking about people who are destroying the earth and one another. If we have total disregard for nature and the miracle and beauty that is life on this planet, then how can we have regard for the lives of each other as human beings? We're going to talk about all of this and more next on the Spirit Side. And greetings one and all, and welcome to the Spirit Side. I'm Paul James Caden, and today on the show we are going to talk about people who are destroying the earth and one another. This topic really came about over the Memorial Day weekend. My family and I were traveling to see relatives that we hadn't seen since the beginning of COVID, and we were passing through a little town in Ulster County, New York, where we used to live. And probably about 7-8 years ago, we lived in this house that was in the middle of the woods on this beautiful piece of property. If you saw this in the summer, in the fall, it looked like a magical fairyland. The colors were so bright in the fall. It was so peaceful. We had deer in our backyard that we would feed. The bear would come once in a while and raid our garbage can, but that's living in nature. We unfortunately rented this piece of property, and the landlords decided they wanted to sell eventually. They asked us if we would be interested in buying the house and the land because we did love it there. But in the end, we decided that, at our age, getting in our 50s, we're going to be getting older. We didn't really want to take on the responsibilities of all the yard work and maintenance and house repairs. So we decided, to stay in the renter category of life. And it was hard. It was a hard decision because we really loved that particular house and that particular piece of land. I remember when we moved and we gave the keys to the front door back to the landlady. We met her on the property, and I remember giving her the key, and I said, man, hopefully when you sell this place, you'll sell it to someone who loves and respects nature and, the land as much as we did. And she said, well, let's hope so, because she really loved it there too. She almost moved into this particular house. So long story short, we decided to go past our old living quarters as we drove through town. So we took a slight detour and drove past the house in the woods. And what we saw when we drove by the house was nothing short of shocking. I think literally we were both just in shock for a few minutes. The individual who bought the house just cut down all the trees, tore up the yard, tore up the land. There were rusted out abandoned vehicles in every crevice and corner that he could put one in. There was trash and wooden pallets stacked and thrown all over the yard in the once upon a time beautiful backyard surrounded by trees and pines and oak. And many, many wild ferns was cut down, torn up, and there was the bed of a pickup truck just kind of thrown out over a stump on the edge of the yard. It was absolutely, it looked like someone dropped a bomb on this piece of property that was once so beautiful. And when we got back home from our travels on Friday night, and, I went to bed, and I usually have a little bit of meditation before I go to sleep. I just tune into God, I tune into the angels, and I just meditate or ask, a question, a thought to maybe drift off to sleep with. So this past Friday night, over Memorial Day weekend, I asked, is there a takeaway spiritual lesson from what we saw today, what happened to that property that was so peaceful, so gorgeous, surrounded by nature? It was like a little oasis. And it came to me rather quickly, maybe because I was more sleepy, more receptive, because it just came into my mind at that moment that yes, there is a takeaway from this. And that is looking at this piece of property that was so beautiful, so surrounded by nature, and seeing the total disregard that someone had for this land. Someone who just saw it as an opportunity, because this individual who bought the house was obviously in the lumber business, because there were stacks of cut down trees all over the property as well. And I did contact the old landlady, and I asked her, wow, have you seen the old property? What happened? And she was very disheartened too, that this had happened. She thought this individual was, looking for a quiet place out in nature, but she was sadly wrong. And she said she saw a lot of lumber coming on the property, then she thought he was building a new house and tearing the old one down, but obviously he sold lumber. But back to my meditation, it came to me that this individual, when he saw the land, only saw it as an opportunity. I can make money off of this wood. I mean, this property is just surrounded by trees. There's a lot of, quite a good strip of land there with all just forest and trees. And he saw it as just an opportunity. He saw it as a place just to store all of his material goods, the cars he will never repair or use parts from, the shed that was stuffed at the corner of the woods that were now cut down, that was so filled with garbage that the door couldn't even close. And sadly, I saw all this because I knocked on the door. I was going to ask if I could photograph. I used to live there, like before and after, the progress of Ulster County, because it's really being built up. It's, country town, and a lot of city folks are finding it. So it's in the stages of really beginning to change. But no one was home. So I just took a quick walk around. I snapped a couple of pictures. I saw the devastation. But, my meditation said, think about this individual who didn't see the beauty, the individual who had no regard for the wildlife, the fox, the deer, the bears, all of the different critters that used to run through there and travel through our backyard. And it came to me in that meditation, think about how many people now on planet Earth are doing the same thing. Cutting down rainforests, cutting down forests all over the world, plowing up fields, just raking up the land to see what they could sell, to see what they could build, to see what kind of business they can have there so that they can bring in a profit. And think about, in the name of making financial profits, how much garbage and waste gets buried in the earth or dumped in the ocean. Because man just takes and takes and takes from the earth, but never gives back, very seldom replenishes. And it came to me in that meditation, just think how many people are out there with that kind of consciousness, that they don't see the sacredness of our world, the beauty of nature, the calm, the tranquility. They only see what they can get from it, what they can take from it. Cut down all the trees, plow up all the land, build houses on top of houses on top of houses until there's nothing left of nature except the few trees and shrubs that were landscaped into whatever business or large housing development or skyscraper is now built on the property. And think, because of all of this, how much of our wildlife is now in danger, dying, being forced out of their homes. And so people are going outside with rifles and, firearms and shooting, the bears and the bobcats and, whatever else might venture onto their property because, well, they tore up their home to build their house. If they see one too many deer, well, they get their rifles at hunting season, they go out into the woods and they thin out the deer population. Well, because there's too many walking in my yard now. Well, they're eating from my flower bed. This is what happens. And so man has this idea that he is the master of the earth. And everything else is just, well, the animals, the insects, the trees. We're the smartest mammal on earth. We're at the top of the food chain. So we dominate. And we do. And we kill. And we pollute. And we poison. And we destroy. And sadly, because of that mindset, we start to look at one another just the same as we would look at a tree that's standing in our way. Cut it down, plow it under, get rid of it. And so we have the wars and the rumors of wars. We have the mass shootings in America. We have people that think, or anybody who has a different skin tone than them should be enslaved or put in special colonies or even wiped out. Look at the school in Canada where there was how many bodies, I don't even remember, of Native American children, or natives, not Native American because they're in Canada, but the native people in Canada. They killed these children in this school and buried their bodies on the property. Now, all of this came to me in my meditation, asking God, asking the angels, is there a takeaway spiritual lesson for seeing this piece of property so decimated? And then 2 or 3 days later, we hear the news of these children that were decimated, killed, destroyed, cut down, and buried under the earth as if they were toxic waste, garbage. Their lives didn't matter. And so after that meditation on Friday night, it really was an eye-opener to me. It really did make me see the world in a different way, because we never really think about that. We drive through our neighborhoods and we see the cornfields and the hills and the woods and the valleys. And then one day we see the bulldozers and the backhoes and the men with the chainsaws cutting down all the trees and all the men on big equipment plowing up the land. And then we see the buildings going up, the houses, the housing developments, the new Jiffy Lube. That was the thing where I used to live. Every postage stamp size piece of land, they would build something. Even it was these small places where you could go get a quick oil change for your car. And where I used to live in Middletown, New York, in Orange County, I think it's still called Jiffy Lube. They would, give you an oil change and, check your tires. And we had so many Jiffy Lubes in every corner where we could put them because they were small. And that town now is just wall-to-wall buildings. It looks like, as my wife says, like somebody put Lego houses in a paper bag, shook it up, and just threw it out over the floor. It's everywhere. And Ulster County, where we used to live, probably isn't far behind that. But this is what we do. We drive through our neighborhoods and say, gee, things are really changing. That used to be a field. Boy, things are really changing. Well, that used to be all woods and forest over there. Now look at all those buildings. Look at all that. And then we see other houses that were maybe once upon a time pristine and beautiful, and now they're in disrepair. The lawn is overgrown, or there's junk or junk cars or whatever all over the property, and we say, wow, remember when so-and-so lived there? It was so beautiful. Look at that. They turned that place into a dump. How terrible. And we see all this, but we don't think how much this is going on a large scale all across the world. And we wonder why the earth is beginning to creak and moan and rebel. Because man will only push things so far, and it will be his demise, not the demise of planet Earth. Nature will win in the end, because nature is a greater force than we are. And as much as we think we can control it, we can't and we won't. And I truly believe that we are here in this world, on this planet, it's kind of a proving ground. How will we live our lives? How will we react to one another? Will we be kind? Will we be loving? Will we be compassionate? And also, will we be those things to this precious world that we live in? This planet that we've been given? Will we be good stewards and take care of nature and all the other little creatures and one another? See, I really truly believe that everything we do here matters. Everything. And we can either treat this place with respect and see it for the miracle that it is and the miracle that we're here, or we can throw it all away and destroy everything around us and kill one another. But I don't think that will lead a lot of people to a good place in the end, because there is life after this life. And when you hear all these religions say, well, we're going to take everything we do back to God, we're going to answer for the things we've done while we were in the physical body. What makes us think that we'll answer just for those things that we do to other human beings? I mean, that's going to be a big part of it. But what makes us think we're not going to answer for how we treated the earth that we've been given? And sadly, a lot of this, and you can trace this back to see that I'm telling the truth. A lot of this idea of taking advantage of the earth, cutting down the rainforest, killing off the wildlife, all the things that we do come once again from this idea from the Bible that has been misconstrued, that man should subdue and have dominion over the earth, that's written in the book of Genesis. And once again, that fundamentalist evangelical view of what, have dominion over the earth means has spiraled into abuse the hell out of the earth. Do what we want to it. We're the masters here. We call the shots. We're better than the animals. We're better than the insects. We're better than the plants. Why, we're all here just to, prosper. And there's the idea that God wants all of his, certain followers who believe in the Bible and Jesus in the right way. Well, they're never going to get sick. They're supposed to be rich. The prosperity gospel that has a lot of roots in that particular religious sect of fundamental evangelical Christianity. And so they think that's what having dominion over the earth means. Stomping it into the ground. Prospering on whatever, hey, God gave us those trees so we could prosper. Well, God gave us all that oil so we could prosper. God gave us gold and silver and all these different resources so his people could find it, sell it, and prosper. Now, this isn't the time and the place to get into all of that, but that is really where this idea stems from and where a lot of the problem first originated in. But isn't it interesting that a lot of those people don't read in the book of Revelation where it says when Christ does return, he comes to put an end to those who are destroying the earth and one another. Did they not take notice that the earth was in there? Maybe Christ isn't so thrilled with people destroying the earth, thinking that means having dominion over it. I guess that's something they'll have to figure out when the time comes, and I believe they will. But I think it's really time to start getting back to seeing the sacredness and the beauty of this world around us. And there's so many people who don't. I mean, there of course, there are some, but what amazes me is I've lived in 2 counties now in New York State, Orange County and Ulster County. And I've seen both of those counties, which were very, country, small town, lots of woods, lots of fields, lots of, just beautiful little places out in nature. I've seen both of those counties where people from New York City, and other, places discover them. And the funny thing about Ulster County is that somehow a lot of people from Hollywood discovered it. I mean, there were stars walking all over and had homes in Ulster County. There was, Willem Dafoe. There was Steve Buscemi, just to name a couple that I know. But, stars, the guy who played James Bond, he has a house in Ulster County. So these people from Hollywood, California somehow find little peaceful Ulster County, and they come and they build a home or they start a business. And then people from the big city start to say, oh, this nice little quaint place, about an hour, 2 hours drive, and everybody from Hollywood's moving there. Must be nice. And they go there and they say, isn't this beautiful? I want to get out of the city. I want to live in a place like this. And COVID sent many running into Ulster County. We're not there anymore, but we hear, COVID, many tried to escape when New York City was, not doing so well. But the funny thing is that I was going to say, getting back to that, they see these places and they say, isn't this beautiful? I want to get out of the city. I want to come here. I want a peaceful house in the country. But yet, once they do that, it's not beautiful anymore. The land is all torn up and it's all back-to-back houses on top of one another, maybe like some of the more crowded suburbs of New York City are now. The big office buildings start going up, the big, conglomerates, offices and doctor offices, and, litter goes up. Before we left Ulster County, you could drive to one of the stores, the Walmart that was kind of out in the country a bit, and there was litter all over the embankment. Empty soda bottles, Snapple bottles, plastic bags, just things thrown all over. And now they say it's even worse. Some of the people that sadly came up from New York City just drive down the back country roads like the one we used to live in and actually take their bags of garbage out with them and just throw them out of the car window on the side of the road. How can people say they appreciate nature, they want to be in nature, but then they destroy it? There's a swimming hole in Ulster County. I think it was voted one of the best places to swim in New York State, and everybody started flocking to it, and the people would come up from the city on the weekends, and then those that moved up here, and they actually closed it off now because it was so polluted. And we saw pictures of it, like before and after. I mean, it just looked like, a couple of 747s filled with stuff from a a garbage dump flew overhead and just dumped it down in this little swimming hole. So how can we say, oh, we appreciate nature, but this is what we do? We just continue to destroy and demolish and tear things up and litter and pollute and throw shit, pardon my language, everywhere. That's not respecting nature. So when you hear people, oh, I love nature, oh, I'd love to live out in the woods, oh, I'd love to live in the mountains or the hills or with the trees, oh, I'd like to get out of the big city. We hear a lot of people say it, but once they get there, the actions don't always line up with the words. Now, some do. Some build very beautiful homes. They preserve the land around them. I'm not saying, oh, I'm not one of these people. Oh, these city people, they're all bad. No. I mean, from what I understand, the guy that bought our old piece of property was a local guy. He didn't live that far from the property, and he just happened to see it was for sale. But there's just people. And just on another note, he told the landlady he was looking for this, nice place in nature, somewhere quiet. But then look what he did. He absolutely decimated the piece of property. So, we hear a lot of people say the words, oh, I love nature. Nature's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. I'd love to live in nature. I want to be in nature. But then when we have opportunity to actually be where it is, I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 people just completely destroy it. So how much appreciation do they really have for it? The earth is not our dumping ground, and no life here is expendable. And until we stop looking at everything as just profit, bigger houses, bigger pieces of property, I want to build my mansion on that hill, Until we start seeing this earth and really appreciating the beauty and the sacredness and the miracle of this planet that we live on, do we realize how rare this is in the universe that we can see. If we destroy this, there's nowhere else to go. We have all these elitists and rich people trying to make a break to the moon, make a break to Mars, and set up colonies. Well, I don't think that's going to work out so well either. There's karma no matter where you go in the universe. Call it karma, call it reaping what you sow, call it whatever you want, but I don't care if you destroy this planet and you do happen to make it to the moon or happen to make it to Mars, it's going to catch up with you. There are higher powers in this universe, and you're not going to rape and destroy this planet and then run away somewhere else when the whole thing starts collapsing. It's not going to work that way. I guarantee it's not. So until we start seeing the beauty and the sacredness and the miracle of this world around us, we're certainly not going to see it in each other. Because think about it. Think about the heresy that religion has taught for so many years. Oh, man is so superior. Animals don't have a soul. People treat animals, I don't even want to say the word that comes to mind or words that come to mind when you see how people abuse animals in this world. Dogs, cats, let alone those that live out in nature, whose homes we're continually destroying so we can build more nonsense. And let's not forget the offspring of that idea when people said, oh, black people don't have a soul, only white people do. And now we got black people who say, well, those white people, they don't have a soul. Everybody's throwing around the religious BS. This don't have a soul. You don't have a soul. We're God's chosen people. You're not God's chosen people. No, we are. Only the whites are. Only the blacks are. Only this people are. Destroying the earth and one another because we can't see that everything is sacred. And every person is sacred. Nothing is here by accident. And until we start treating one another in this world better, things are never going to get better. At least not in this physical world. And that, my friends, is what I think will inevitably contribute to what we call the end of days. We will push the envelope too far, and it will start a chain of events that man will not be able to stop. So that's my rant. That's my bit in this podcast. This was a little bit more conversational. I like to do these kind of shows once in a while. Just be real, what's happening, what I'm thinking about, what I've seen. What it brings to mind, what comes to me in my spirit meditations. And I think this is definitely something we all need to start thinking about. Because we really are destroying this earth and one another. And I think it's getting pretty quick to that point where there's going to be no turning back, and that chain of events is going to start unfolding rather quickly. So anyway, folks, I thank you so much for listening today. As always, I hope you got something out of this podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and no matter where you live, take the opportunity to walk outside. Look at the sun, look at the moon, look at the clouds, look at the birds, the trees, whatever is around you, and just see the beauty and the sacredness and the miracle of this world around you. I'll talk to you next time here on the Spirit Side.